A program is required to allow the students to calculate the volume of a number of standard 3D shapes. It will use functions to allow the shapes to be added. Okay, so यहाँ पे आपको बता दें कि functions and procedures use होंगे. Okay, we can skip all of this. Output a menu. Okay, so going back to the keywords, जो टेस्ट में आपको दी मेन्यू का क्या मतलब है कि आपने मॉडल्स यूज करने हैं. ठीक है. So to ask the user for an input to indicate the shape for which a volume needs to be calculated from the 3 shapes given, and the program must validate the input. Okay, validate का क्या मतलब होता है ये भी मैंने आप लोगों को बताया था. Validation की जगह यहाँ पे validate लिखा था हमने. Validate का मतलब है कि आपने यहाँ पे conditional loop लगाना है. You will make sure that the value is valid, and until that is not the case, you will keep on taking the values input again and again. Input the data needed to calculate the volume of the chosen shape, and then create one function for each shape and return the volume. And then each function uses the input data as parameters and then output rounded to 2 decimal places. Okay, जैसे round का function लिखा है आपने साथ ही इसको annotate करना है ताकि आपको याद रहे. The program must continue until the user inputs and stops the options from the menu. ठीक है. अच्छा, let's forget the whole mathematical part. पहले इस program को plan करते हैं. अच्छा, and the best part is there are no arrays in this question. It's actually a very easy question, but only if you know function and procedures. Otherwise, this is quite a difficult one. So I'm assuming कि function and procedures पे we spend enough time तो आप लोगों को आते होंगे. I'll do a very quick and easy recap of it if you do not remember. So this is MJ 2025 paper 2. Okay, so how do we do this? In this question, funnily, you do not even need to visualize it. अच्छा, अब सबसे पहले वो कह रहा है कि आपने एक menu create करनी है for the shape. ठीक है? Now there are 3 shapes. One way to take input would be to ask the user to input the shape name. So cuboid, triangular, prism, or sphere. So always go for integer inputs because they're easy. आप user से go input 1 for cuboid, 2 for triangular prism. जैसे आप लोग ATM पे जाते हो, तो you click 1 for, let's say, balance, 2 for withdrawal. You never have to type in the whole thing, right? That is just inefficient and a waste of time. So first of all, they're saying कि आपने shape का जो name input लेना है and you have to validate that. Okay, so let's try this. So as always, whenever we create functions and procedures, there is a main program where we're going to call them from, and then there would be functions. Second thing they're telling us in this program is that there would be one function for each shape to calculate and return the volume using the formula. Each function uses the input data as parameters. So let's do that first. So function लिखते कैसे? Again, the syntax is given to us in the pseudocode guide, and you must remember it now by now. Function and function का name. Let's call it cuboid. Then parameters. So cuboid के अंदर उसने कहा कि जो भी inputs चाहिए होंगे ना आपको to calculate the volume, they would be the parameters. So we have base, depth, and height. So let's call it base, depth, and height. Or you can use full names. It's up to you. So base, depth, and height. इस तरह से आप थोड़ा सा short form कर सकते हो. And then उसके आगे आते हैं returns. ठीक है? This would be the return data type of your volume. So आप लोगों को बताओ volume की return type क्या होनी चाहिए? Integer, boolean, string, real. What should be the volume like? यहाँ पे hint भी दिया हुआ है. Pi की value भी use हो रही है. Fraction भी use हो रही है. So what type?
Real.
Yes, perfect. It should be real. ठीक है? Okay. So they're saying here कि आपने यहाँ पे इनकी volume जो return करनी है और volume को सीधा हम volume में store कर देते हैं. Okay, how do we calculate the volume of cuboid? Base into depth into height. Literally, we just have to multiply these. Base times depth times height, and then you just return the volume. That's it. इससे ज़्यादा ये मुश्किल हो ही नहीं सकता. So ये आपने cuboid की जो volume है वो calculate कर ली. Okay, this is one function that is done. Okay, then we have to create another function for prism. Let's call it prism. Prism will also have the base depth and height. Okay, base depth and height. और यहाँ पे आपने क्या करना है? 0.5 से इसको multiply कर देना है. And then everything else remains the same. And then we have another function. It's called sphere. So sphere. और यहाँ पे pi or radius. Okay, so how many parameters in this case? Pi or 3 times radius. So do we pass in radius thrice with pi? Is this correct? Radius.
No, just once.
Yes, just once. Okay. Abdullah, can you Verify if that is the case or not. Do we only write radius once, or is this the correct one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we
Just
just write
once.
exactly, because pi is a constant and radius we do not need to repeat it thrice. Okay, so what we need to do here is we'll just multiply it by 4 divided by 3. So 4 divided by 3 into radius. Okay, so you cannot use the Python raised to power operator here. Okay, it can be the pseudocode one, which is this one, raised to power 3, or you can just multiply radius thrice like this, and then you will return the volume. Just by writing these three definitions, you will get like 4 marks just for this. Okay, देन वी आर सेइंग कि अब आपने मेन के अंदर आपने एक मेन्यू क्रिएट करनी है, ठीक है. सो अच्छा, अब आप लोगों को पता है कि इफ यू जस्ट रन द प्रोग्राम तो नथिंग वुड हैपन लिटरली. एंड इफ आई जस्ट शो यू दिस इन पाइथन क्विकली, अगेन पाइथन इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड, बट जस्ट टू शो यू, सो डिफाइन समथिंग एंड आई विल से प्रिंट, लेट्स से टेस्ट, और मैं ये लाइन जो है वो 5 टाइम्स प्रिंट कर देता हूँ, ठीक है. इफ आई रन द प्रोग्राम नथिंग विल हैपन because I did not call this procedure. So functions and procedures never work until they are explicitly called. जैसे आपको जब तक आपके नाम से कोई बुलाएगा नहीं तो you wouldn't really pay much attention. So now if I call it, it works, right? And if I run it again, it doesn't work. Same logic applies. ठीक है. So our main के अंदर will be doing the actual calling of the function. So the question says कि आपने यूजर को एक मेन्यू आउटपुट करके देनी है. Okay, very simple. You can use repeat until, you can use while here. So let's use repeat until. It's always simple. Repeat until, let's say user's choice is equal to 0. Okay, अब 0 पे हम उसको exit allow कर देंगे. So we'll check if choice. So we'll ask the user to output. Enter 1 for cuboid, 2 for I think prism था, 3 for sphere, and 0 for exit. Okay, it will just eliminate the chances for error. Okay, and then you will check if choice is not equal to 0. Then, ठीक है, अगर choice आपकी 0 के equal हो जाएगी तो you just are supposed to exit basically. In fact इसको कर लेते हैं, choice is equal to 0, तो यहाँ पे हम output कर देंगे कोई value. Let's check. Then you can output maybe exiting program or something, or you don't even need to. Okay, else if choice is equal to 1, then we're going to output. Okay, so अब यहाँ पे आपने कीवर्ड का फंक्शन कॉल करना है, ठीक है. So इसको भी यहाँ पे छोड़ देते हैं. ये कीवर्ड के लिए होगा, else if choice is equal to 2, then ये prism के लिए होगा, else if choice is equal to 3, then this would be for your sphere, ठीक है. और यहाँ पे हम end if कर देंगे. This is basically the skeleton of the program. Any problems till this point? Okay, ठीक है. अब यहाँ पे आपने सिर्फ यहाँ पे हमारी वैलिडेशन भी होगी, बिकॉज वैलिडेशन कैसे हो रही है कि जब तक यूजर करेक्ट इनपुट से इनपुट करेगा तब तक ये आपका लूप रिपीट होता जाएगा. सो फॉर 0 इट विल एग्जिट, और 1 2 3 के लिए अब वो बाकी प्रोग्राम चलेगा. ओके, नाउ द ओनली थिंग लेफ्ट इज टू एक्चुअली मेक इट फंक्शनल. व्हेन द यूजर प्रेसेस 1 फॉर क्यूबॉइड, तो अब आपने क्या करना है, आपने क्यूबॉइड के लिए उसको बेस, डेप्थ और हाइट पैरामीटर के तौर पे भेजनी है, एंड देन यू आर गोइंग टू कॉल दैट फंक्शन. Okay, so in order to call the function, उसका syntax क्या होता है कि आप variable on the left side, arrow, name of the function on the right side, and then you pass in the values, base, depth, and height. Okay, now where do we get these from? These would be inputted by the user. So they're saying, yes, input data. Okay, so आपने user से कहना है output, enter base, depth, and height for ये keyboard लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. So you'll input that base, depth, and height all in the same line if you want to, base, depth, height, like this, and then you calculate the volume, and then you simply output the volume like this. If you understand this, then literally बाकी सब same है. Enter base, depth, height, और यहाँ कीबोर्ड की जगह हम prism कर देंगे, and will. So अच्छा, अब होगा क्या, इसको एक दफा देखते हैं. Let's say I input 1 1 1. Then I say call cuboid with 1 base, 1 depth, 1 height. So अब हमारा जो प्रोग्राम है वो लाइन 41 से एग्जिट होगा, and we'll go all the way up to look for a cuboid function. We find cuboid function here. We copy 1 1 1 here. We multiply 1 1 1, and then it will return the value. So return क्या करते हैं, function will terminate करके it brings the value back into the line it was called from. So let's say 1 के अलावा कोई और value करते हैं, maybe it returns 20 for some reason. Now we're going to pick this 20 and we will bring it back into the line we called from, which was line number 41. So यहाँ पे बाकी पास 20 आ जाएगा जो भी volume था, and then it will output the 20 on the screen. This is how it works. Imagine it like how you leave your house every day and eventually you come back. So ये बिल्कुल वही वाली analogy है. So you leave a spot and then you remember to go back to it. Okay, similarly, if somebody chooses, let's say the prism, so prism में 2 2 2 अगर वो input करता है 2 1 0 कुछ भी, तो from line 48 you'll go to prisms, let's say to the prism function, you copy the values, use calculate, and you literally return it back into the line it was called from, which was line 48. And then lastly, we have the sphere. So output enters radius for the sphere, and then input radius, and then we'll say volume is equal to sphere radius, and then we simply output the volume, and literally that is the whole program. We actually did 2 15 markers in the same class, but again these were the ones जो कि थोड़े से जो ना comparatively easy. Does this make sense? ठीक है. So in fact अगर इसको हम quickly GPT में convert करके Python में लेके आते हैं just to see if it is working or not, and it should be working. Convert to Python. This should be base depth height. Okay, here we go. We copy this and we'll run it. Okay, let's see. I'll enter 1 for cuboid. Base is 1, depth is 2, height is 3, and it says volume is 6. Okay, 3 into 2 into 1. Then maybe next time I input a sphere and the radius could be 2, and it says this is the volume, and maybe now I'm going to input 0 and it says exiting program, and that is it. The whole program is done. It's working perfectly fine. So we just converted into Python to see if it is the logic is correct or not. And if I input any other value except these, maybe if I input 6, so it wouldn't do anything because we didn't print any error message. Well, GPT did that on its own, but we didn't do it here, so it's not going to print anything. If you want to, you can add simply an else here, and you can output invalid input choice. And with this, the whole question from Major 25 paper 22 is done. G, any questions?